Hi there, this is Alvin, and welcome to the Kickstart Commerce podcast, where we share search marketing and domain name investing strategies to help grow your business. Obviously, things look a bit different today, and that's because we are at NamesCon 2020 here in Austin, Texas. And so today's guest obviously is none other than, you can see him here, Morgan Linton. And so you're probably familiar with Morgan from morganlinton.com. As well as probably some of us are familiar with bantering with him on Twitter. And so in today's episode, we are going to do a bit of discussion in terms of what's going on here at NamesCon, as well as get into, how someone like Morgan, how he invests in terms of domain names. And then last but not least, we're going to do 3 lessons that basically forever changed how he invests in domain names. So with that, Morgan, man, welcome.
Alvin, thaned you so much for having me here. Excited to be on.
Certainly.
I still have a voice today. This could be the end of my voice. I feel like this may be the last day. So,
how many meetings have you had?
I've had probably something around 30, I would say, so far. It's been a lot.
So 30, and so NamesCon started Wednesday, so you had meetings Wednesday.
I had meetings Wednesday. I had meetings pretty much all day yesterday.
Right. And you had a session.
Had a session, yeah. It's been really busy. It's been fantastic, but yeah, with NamesCon, because it's the biggest conference in the industry, it's also when, the most people are together.
Right.
And because all of us live all over the world, which is a great thing about domain investing, but also means when we're together, to get that face time is so important.
Right. So it's interesting because I guess the light bulb goes on here in terms of this is my second NamesCon. My first was in 2018, so out in Vegas, Tropicana. And so obviously venue changed now. We're here in Austin, Texas. We're at the Omni Downtown Hotel. And so one of the things that really occurred to me this conference is that there are really almost like 3 conferences, if you will, that are happening. There's the all-in to every session, so the attendees going from session to session to session to keynote daily, as well as to different functions like happy hours, dinners. And then there's people like yourself who, to a certain extent, I'm like, you are the information resource, so you sit on panels, but then as far as attending sessions, that's
I haven't been to a session yet. I've been in too many meetings.
So what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing with your time?
Yeah. So I meet with, just because I've been doing this, it's been 12 years since I started. So started in 2007. And it's just such a great community. And I've just gotten to know people so well over the years. And so there's a lot of us that either have done deals together or are doing deals together, or we like to, at least once a year, share what's working for us and what doesn't. And so there's some people that I've known for years that have been doing this for 25 years. I met with a few people today that have been doing this for 25 plus years. So I love meeting with them. They've got really interesting insights. They can really see how things have changed over time. Meeting with other people like Josh Rashonen, I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong, but sorry, Josh. But
Posh.com.
Yeah, Posh.com, Sign.com. I had beers with him last night, and he's someone that I communicate with a bunch on Twitter, but I haven't had the chance to just sit down and talk to.
Right.
And so it's really, I think there's so much you can learn when you share what you're doing, someone else shares what they're doing, and then you can have that dialogue. Boy, I just feel like a sponge. It's just so much to learn. I love it.
So then you're pretty much hopping the meeting circuit, and then there's kind of the last lane, if you will, where you have people like myself that are, going to the sessions, trying to get video content, trying to have interviews like this at the same time to be able to provide at least a bit of educational or informational guidance to the industry, and then also, I'm hopping in between meetings, and so it is like a whirlwind event.
If it wasn't for you, I would miss a lot of stuff, though, because I get up and then I read your posts and I watch your videos, so it's very helpful.
It's like, I'll go live through Alvin.
I'm not just a guest, I'm also a fan.
Yeah, certainly. And so you said you've been in domain investing for what, 12 years?
12 years.
So how did you get in?
Yeah. Funny story how I got in, actually. So I was working for Sonos, digital music company, sells wireless multi-music systems. And I'd come into, at the time, in my early 20s, what was a lot of money for me. and I was looking at like, what should I do with this money? And I talked to my dad, and my dad said, oh, you should put it in mutual funds, or you should buy real estate. And I thought, boy, that sounds so boring. Like, I'm in my 20s, I should do something more interesting. And I kid you not, I searched on Google for how to make money online. And I found Sahar's blog, early domain investor and blogger, conceptualist.com, read about what he was doing buying and selling domain names, discovered DN Journal, discovered Domain Name Wire. That was pretty much the only blogs that existed then. Domaining.com wasn't around. Right. But I said, wow, this is so interesting. And that's what first kind of inspired me to start investing in domains. I did what most people do, is get overly excited, take all the money in the world that you haven't invested in domain names, and then wait a few months and go, oh no, what have I done? So that's how it started.
He's like, I started buy instead of read.
Yes, I went very heavy on .us names.
Oh, really?
Which was a terrible mistake at the time, and I do not have those names anymore. I've since learned my lesson.
I've licked my wounds. I've moved on.
I'm over. It's okay. It's a long time ago.
Interesting. So, so what domains are you investing in, or what extensions are you investing in this day?
I mean, my core focus has always been two-word.coms. Like, two-word.coms are my bread and butter.
Like, that's my safe space.
They've always been good to me. I tend to buy in the sub $500 range, sell in the, say, $2,500, $7,500 range. It's kind of where I sit with two-word.coms. And then starting maybe 4 years ago, I began investing more and more in .io, mostly one-word.ios, like names that I could see selling for 6 figures in .com, or that had sales history of selling for 6 figures in .com, having that same name in .io. And then more recently, just kind of dipping my toes in, not trying to say that this is the direction everyone should go, and I don't think it's going to represent more than 5% of my portfolio, but starting to play around a little bit with .gg, .ai, and .vc.
So why those extensions?
Just because I see what's happening in those markets. So, I run a software company in San Francisco. That's my full-time day job. And all the founders that I know, when they're trying to get the name for their company, they end up with, the same thing that everybody goes through. They want the .com. The .com is taken or is too expensive to buy. And so then they go, well, what else do I want? And in a lot of cases, .io is like their top choice next to .com. Like, .io is just on fire in the startup space. .ai has seen a similar growth over the last couple of years as kind of AI and machine learning has become a hotter topic. And so now, if you're an AI startup, I'm seeing more and more startups go, well, I want the .ai name because that provides the context for what it is that I do. And then .vc, same thing for VC space. I look at, there's a VC firm called Cowboy Ventures. Like, for them, having cowboy.com isn't necessarily as useful as cowboy.vc, because cowboy.com sounds like it has to do with something to do with cowboys or with something Western, whereas cowboy.vc, you instantly understand, oh, that's a VC firm. And .gg, I mean, this is like, I feel like I'm giving away a secret here in some ways, but I think this is like one of the sleeper.
It's everybody madly types.
This is one of the sleeper TLDs of the decade, I would say. Like I said, I'm not going heavy in investing, and I do not recommend anybody does that, because you could lose all your money.
GG.
So here's what happened. So in any kind of like competitive esports, so like League of Legends is the most popular in the world, and then you have Fortnite and a bunch of other games, Counter-Strike. Just like with a traditional sport, like when a baseball game ends, what does everybody do? Both teams kind of walk and shake each other's hands, right? At the end of any esport, and a lot of these are broadcast on Twitch, on YouTube, have millions and millions of views. At the end of every game, everybody you'll see in the chat to each other says GG, which means good game. And that is just, there is no other way. Nobody ends by saying good game. Nobody ends by saying great playing with you. It's not like there's a bunch of different permutations of what happens at the end of a game. Right. Every single competitive esport worldwide in every language ends with GG. And so within the gaming community, .gg is massive. Discord, which is bigger than Slack or Twitter for the gaming community, started on discord.gg. And I would say at least 50% of the pro athletes that are making, I guess people have trouble, people being called athletes, so I'll say gamers so I don't get myself in trouble for this, because I don't want to suddenly have people saying, like, how can you call them athletes? But the gamers that make, say, over $500,000 a year that are on these pro teams. At least half of those teams are on .gg domains. And so when you go to a gaming conference or a gaming event, .gg is everywhere.
Wait, rewind back to
most people have no idea.
Athletes are making $500,000.
Sure, yeah. People don't realize how much money these gamers are making. Small teams, though.
What? I mean,
playing games.
So teams in terms of, I guess, are they grouping 4 or 5 people together?
Usually 4 or 5 people. Yeah. So you have like Liquid is one of the biggest teams out there. San Francisco, we have our own esports team called SF Shock. Actually won the Overwatch Cup a few months ago. And these are viewed, first off, esports viewership is growing faster than TV or music listenership. So the growth rate is out of this world, and it's global. So like the cool thing is, like I went to BlizzCon, a gaming conference, and watched esports, and it felt like being at the Olympics. The stadium was full. First off, there was about 30,000 people in the stadium just watching Overwatch, when I was watching Overwatch, and it was divided by country. So I'm actually a big fan of the South Korean team, so I actually sit with South Korea and wave the South Korean flag and cheer on with everybody. And like they're playing the Netherlands, then you have the Netherlands over there, and it's almost like going to an Olympic sport. So it's truly global, which means the growth is really going to be astronomical. Whereas if you look at like baseball, for example, which is also global, but in a different way because it's mostly U.S. and Canadian teams.
Right. And it's matured quite a bit.
Yes.
So would you say that it's more of a generational
Absolutely.
thing?
Absolutely.
Like, hey, you're probably 40 below.
Yeah, anyone that I talk to that is my age or older is like, what are you talking about? You're going to what? You're watching what? You watch Twitch? Like, but I do. That's what I'm into, because I've never been like a super big traditional sports fan. So like everyone's been asking me because the Super Bowl is on Sunday. And I just found out the 49ers are in the Super Bowl. And people have been asking me like, oh, are you so excited? I'm like, I can't name a single player on the 49ers. I don't watch football. Football season annoys me because like my favorite sports bars are really crowded all the time with people watching sports. Yeah. So esports, I've always been into gaming more than traditional sports, so I've always gravitated towards that. And so it's interesting, when I go to these conferences, the people that I end up meeting are like 15 years younger. But it's great because it gives me insight into, what are 22-year-olds thinking about, and what services are they using? And boy, the number of people that have websites on .gg domain names or gave me their email address and it was at a domain at a .gg domain name, or connecting through Discord, it's a whole different world.
Interesting. So, but when we think about that, so there's a generation of folks that are using .gg. So to a certain extent, it's not to say that .com doesn't matter, but they're somewhat becoming a bit blind, if you will, in terms of what that ending TLD is.
Well, and they're biased because they like .gg. I mean, there's still plenty of teams that brand on .com, but there's a lot that like .gg. I think Discord was really what gave it the push, because Discord is like the chat app that everybody uses in gaming. And it's kind of like Slack, but it'll show like what game you're playing, and it has a really good connection to games and to platforms like Steam and to Epic Game Launcher and things like that. And they branded it on .gg, and like a bunch of big esport teams branded on .gg, and it just set the bar for everybody else.
And so literally .gg is just seeing this exponential growth.
Yeah.
Now, in comparison to, let's say, .io, what does that look?
Yeah, I mean, I think .io is growing a lot faster. I think .gg, these are still the early days. Who knows? We may look back on this video 10 years from now. My beard will be down to here. But I'll dye it, so it won't have any gray hairs in it. But and we could be looking and be like, well, Morgan, that guy was an idiot. He told everybody how great .gg is, and that thing just tanked. Or maybe it is that it's just really early. That's what I think.
Interesting.
Because it's early for esports, right? Like esports people, I know we didn't think we were going to be talking about this, but but esports, I think, is in such a nascent state, and it's so misunderstood. And what I compare it to is there's a great article from like 1905, and it's warning parents, don't let your kids read fiction books. It will rot their brains. Now, obviously, parents, if they're like, oh, my kid's reading all the Harry Potter books, they're like, oh, what a genius, that's fantastic. They love reading. And I think games are misunderstood in the same way. It's just like, you go to see a great movie, or everyone talks about this great Netflix series, and it's like, well, what's to say that's better than playing a game? You actually activate more neurons, it requires more thought, it requires more, dexterity with your hands.
Correct.
And you have to think quickly. Like, you have to think much faster in a competitive esport than you do in chess, for example. But everyone considers chess to be this academic game and League of Legends to be a cartoony game where people waste their time. That's going to change, but, it usually takes a generation for that to change.
Right, and that's what I was about to say. So it's interesting that you have now this generation that's coming in. Obviously, they're being introduced to .gg names, and they're still .com names. It's not that .gg has this market, but I go for what the interest is of the time.
Yes.
It does. .gg does, but it's also going, so what does this mean for that next generation of domain investing?
Yes, exactly. Same with .ai, right? It's like 10 years ago, AI wasn't that hot. .ai was still there 10 years ago.
Right.
It wasn't that hot. Now it is.
Hot, and I think, so what's the pricing look like with the .gg versus a .ai? Because I think it's like .ai's are like $100.
.ai's are expensive, and they have a high carrying cost to them. Yeah, I think .ai's, depending on where you register them, can be anywhere from like $129 a year to $199 a year. Wow. GGs are, I think, I just bought a bunch of GGs, so I should probably know this. I can look it up on my phone. I think you can get them for like $35 or so. I'd say similar pricing to .io. Any of these non.coms have a higher carrying cost, but that's why I always think, kind of my methodology outside of .com is it should be a name that if I told you the .com and I said, I'm asking $500,000 for it, you'd be like, yep, that seems fair. If it's something that doesn't meet that criteria, probably not worth buying. So any of the stuff I buy in a .io or .gg, it has to be just a super premium one word.
Interesting. So then, obviously, we likely have people that are either coming into the industry, they're going to hear this, they're going to rush out, they're going to go, I want to go out and buy .gg.
Yeah, don't do that, by the way, because then you're going to hate me for it when you lose all your money.
So then,
I've never sold a .gg name.
I go, what do you recommend? Like, so obviously there's the legacy TLDs, there's the .coms, the .nets, the .orgs. Obviously we have the new TLDs. We're, 5 to 7 years into this thing. But then there are the ccTLDs, so the .ai's, like, where do you suggest is they...
Oh, and .co, I should say .co also, Yeah, and that's actually, I realized I forgot to mention .co, which I think is probably the best place if you invest outside of .com right now.
Gotcha.
Nicole wrote an amazing analysis on Name Pros, which everyone should look up.
Look him up, hypernames.co,
Hypernames,
right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, hypernames.co. He actually, I think if you go to the website, he lists all of his domain names on that site. And I mean, it's a pretty slick
He's done a fantastic job keeping track of all that. But yeah, I think, outside of .com, one-word.cos, one-word.ios.
And when you say one word, like, are we, somebody's going, it never fails. Someone will run out. I registered a 24-character.co.
Yeah, some really weird.
Because Morgan said it was one word. No, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to use some reason with this. And typically, you're probably talking about one word, probably 8 characters or less.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. And usually, they're not going to be available to buy. So if you can hand register, not to say you can't make money hand registering. I think Nicole made a bunch hand registering names. But, a lot of the premium names end up getting picked up by drop catchers, and that's where you're going to get them. So places like Park.io and GoDaddy Auctions are two of the main places I buy that inventory.
So then, obviously, you just mentioned, you're like, oh, well, I've not sold a GG name, so...
And I just bought GG names, by the way, like this month. So this is going to be, talk to me a year from now, and I'll tell you how it goes, yeah.
So then, buying .gg names, then... What are you selling in terms of sales? And what are you doing?
Mostly tour.coms. Okay. Still, that's always kind of been my bread and butter.
That's it.
And .io.
Okay.
Yeah. And I get a lot of offers on both that I turn down because I'm not a full-time domainer. This is not like what I need for my livelihood, which I think is a great position for a lot of people to be in with domaining, which they are in. You can wait until you get a price that you think would be reasonable. At the same time, I also have like level set pricing, so I'm not expecting crazy prices for everything.
Gotcha. So then, in terms of just what you do, obviously you said, hey, I'm not a full-time domain investor. So then how much time are you actually dedicating to domain investing?
Yeah, pretty much no time during the week because I run I run a startup, so that takes up all my time. So during the week, I write a blog. I spend about half an hour a day writing a blog post. That's about all I do domaining on weekdays. Wow. Saturday, I try to just take the day off and relax and not do anything in front of a computer. Sundays is usually my once a week time, and I usually spend 2 to 3 hours and usually kind of going through my portfolio, checking renewals, doing any kind of deeper research or analysis I might do. With the exception of when I get inbound offers, I respond to those right away, but I would say on average that takes like 2 to 3 minutes a day because I get maybe 1 to 2 inbound offers a day. So
no hand wedging outside of obviously buying .gg names or whatever.
Yeah.
But so no hand wedging, and then what about the expired auctions?
Yeah, that's pretty much where I buy. Okay. Yeah, and so Sunday also, that's when I'll usually do my expired domain buying. Sure. Yeah.
Gotcha. So then, in terms of these lessons that you were talking about,
let me pull this up.
What are these lessons that forever just kind of changed your strategy?
Yeah. So I have 3 different lessons I've learned from specific domain sales that I put together for the talk that Brady and I did. And then we opened it up for questions, which was a lot of fun, but we never got to other lessons.
What was the name of the session?
It was a year in the life of a domainer.
Okay.
So I think we didn't really cover that at all. We just, we asked questions and people kept asking questions, which was great. And there were so many good questions. I think it ended up being a really fantastic session, just completely different than what it was planned to be. But sometimes the best things are unplanned. So
hey, there you go.
So yeah, I guess one of them I did share in the session. The other 2 I didn't, but I'll start with this anyways. Summon.com was a one-word.com I bought for I think like $3,500, and I got an offer a couple months later for $18,000. And so 2 mistakes I made. First off, I was like too afraid to counter because I didn't want to lose the deal, and I thought, oh, this seems so great. So I didn't even, I'm sure they had a bigger budget than the first number they threw out.
Wow.
I was very excited, but because it was so close in time to when I purchased it, I was like, this is great. I spent $3,500, I made $18,000, fantastic. And then everyone I told about that sale that was like a more experienced domainer was like, oh man, that is a terrible deal. I'm like, what do you mean? $3,500, $18,000? They're like, that could be a 6-figure name. And I was like, oh, yeah. So lesson there was, well, first off, don't accept the first offer you get. Wow. That's usually not their high. And second off, especially for like a one-word.com like that, there's, I think, this psychology that you have of you're more likely to sell a name for less money if the offer comes in closer to the time that you bought it. There's a psychology of it where you're like, well, I want to flip, right? When really that has nothing to do with good business economics, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, what you really want is the highest ROI that you can get, right? Which is not necessarily going to come 2 months after you bought the name.
Exactly. Gotcha.
So that was lesson 1. Have not made that mistake again.
So then wait. So if we're going to 2, so summon.com. So there are probably folks that are sitting there with one word. So one of the domains that came to mind for me was something like Mitello. So think MITELO.
Yep. Yeah.
So I'm sitting there thinking and hearing the story and going, oh, well, I've got a six-figure domain. And you go, well, not exactly. Yeah,
well, it's, some of the brandables, they can sell for that.
Correct.
But the sweet spot is more in the 4 or 5 figure range.
Right.
For something like that, if it's a very well-known word.
Yeah, it's a dictionary word.
Yeah, I was talking about like Josh that bought sign.com. Like that's a very clear 6-figure name.
Right.
I always say you can tell if a name is 6 figures just by when you hear it, right away. Yeah. Right. So like Summon could be not necessarily. I mean, it could be also a high 5-figure name. It's not one that screams. Certainly not a 7-figure name.
Correct.
But when you look at a lot of the 6-figure one-word sales, they seem pretty obvious.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, what's the likelihood of finding Summon in expired auctions that's going to be, because I know most people go, well, I'll pay $100, $200. Yeah. It's like, well, no, the likelihood is you're probably going to be high 4 figures.
Oh yeah, at least. And now
that you find as gems.
Yeah, now you're going to be paying even close to retail, I think, a lot of times when you buy it in auction. This was reaching out directly to the owner of the name. Yeah, actually, how I ended up getting the name was I was helping a startup acquire a domain name, and that was one of the names they were looking at, and they decided to go with a different name, and these guys got back to me after the startup already bought the other name and said, oh, hey, actually, we're not even using this. We'll sell it to you for $3,500. I thought, well, that's great. So,
who knew?
Yeah.
Who knew?
Yeah. But there's a lot of competition in that market. There's a lot of domain investors and brokers that are pinging oneword.com winners all the time and trying to get them to sell for wholesale. So that's a crowded market too.
And most people probably, they either don't know about the domain industry or market altogether.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of like, yeah, I think I held this thing long enough.
Yeah.
3,500?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then they move on, and then it reminds me so much of my original sale to where I was in $30.
Yeah.
Sold it for $500.
Yeah.
And then found out 2 weeks later that it got flipped for like $5,000.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I'm like, no.
Still made more than 10x ROI.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah.
I could have.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things I guess you learn that in the domain industry, like you have to leave a little meat on the bone.
Yeah, and also it's like you don't know if you haven't gotten a lot of offers on a certain name.
Right.
You know, why would you not take an offer? I mean, I have some domains that I've had offers on over the years, but nothing over, say, $1,000. So if I get a $2,500 offer and I counter at $7,500, we land at $4,000. Am I leaving some money on the table? Maybe, but like, when am I going to get that again? And how long do I want to wait?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and I think James Booth, he mentioned something like this in one of his sessions this morning. Not that Morgan was there, but
I actually wanted to go to James's session. I got pulled into something.
He mentioned about being able to go, no, you got to draw the line and take a loss sometimes on a given domain. If you already know that, hey, I'm going to have 9 more sales that are going to more than make up for this loss. Yeah. So if something comes in, he's like, it's out.
Yeah.
He's like, I'll take a bath or a haircut on this thing. But I only do that because I know that I have 8 or 9 more sales coming along that I'm going to do way more than that.
That's a fantastic point. Yeah.
So then point number 2.
Okay, lesson 2. I bought a bunch of .me domains, oneword.me domains in an auction that .me did, and did Outbound on them. So I think I bought, I want to say 5 names. It's in a blog post though, so it could have been more. I think it was 5 names. I paid $500 each, so it was $2,500. And sold 2 of them, camping.me and rap.me, for
like rap in hip hop rap or like rapping gifts?
Rap like hip hop rap, R-A-P, yeah. And I don't know if I can talk about who bought it. It was a cool guy that ended up buying rap.me. But at any rate, sold both of those a few months later for $10,000.
Okay.
And so what that taught me, that was really one of the first times I had started to do more heavy outbound. And so that taught me, oh, wow, if you do outbound, like I would probably still, so it's interesting, the other names that I bought in the auction, I still have, and I haven't done outbound on them.
Really?
And I always thought, gosh, if I didn't do outbound on those names, would I still be sitting on those? And then, the names that I have now, boy, if I did outbound on them, could I sell them for $5,000 each? And I've just been too busy, since I started a company. Outbound is super time consuming. Yeah. Anyone that does will tell you so.
Outbound, what's your definition of doing outbound?
Reaching out to people you think might be interested in the name and saying, hey.
And that's both in the industry as well as actual in.
Only out of the industry.
Okay.
Yeah. So I never really sell to domainers. I don't think people should sell to domainers unless they want a quick sale, because you're always going to take a huge haircut on the price, since a domainer is going to resell it.
Right.
And the end user is actually going to use it.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense. So then, in terms of your outbound, so are you picking up the phone, dialing out, or are you emailing, or what?
When I used to do it, it was over email. I think if I was to do it again, like if I restarted doing outbound this year or next year, I'd probably have LinkedIn as my number one outreach tool. Most people, in a lot of the conversations I have with people that are doing outbound, every single person talks about how effective LinkedIn is.
Really?
And a lot of it is by doing a LinkedIn request and then saying add note and putting it in the note rather than just in mail. Now people do in mail too, and that works well. But people get so much junk mail that I think it's so easy to get ignored. And then someone in our session actually said that they've been sending physical mail, like physical letters.
Yeah, so like U.S. Because I think somebody, man, I can't remember who it was telling me that they FedEx somebody.
Yeah.
And they had to sign for it, so
Yeah.
they knew that they got it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
yeah.
what they did with it from there, it was
Yeah.
kind of up in the air, but at least they know somebody signed for this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I can't remember who it was, but their domain did wind up selling. I'm like,
Get someone, you know you're going to get someone's attention.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas with email, you have no idea if they're ever going to look at it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So let's see. So that was the lesson. Camp.me or Wrapped.me was like, whoa, wait a second. I can do outbound, and these can actually sell.
But no more .me's after that? Or,
I still have the ones that I had in that auction, but everything I do now is inbound. So.
And it's like a handful that are remaining.
Yeah. I think I've got maybe 5 or 6 dummy names, I want to say. Yeah. And then I'd pretty much been in the .com space, and I hadn't considered. I had some .me, some .co. Hadn't considered .io at all. And Park.io launched, and I started buying some .io names that were dropping. At that time, there was like pretty much no competition. I was getting a lot of names, and it's funny. I was just talking to Mike that runs Park.io.
Right, because he's here at NamesCon.
And we were kind of reminiscing about that time and how different it is now, because now obviously there's a lot of competition for the .io names, and stuff that I paid $99 for goes for say 500 to 1,000 on there now, I would say.
Wow.
And so yeah, I think one of the first. I was trying to figure out what my actual first .io sale was. I think one of my earlier ones was Yummy.io, which I sold for $1,698. And most of these were purchased for between $99 and $199. And that's when I realized, like, oh wow, I had kind of had in my head, I was quoting higher, but I kind of had in my head, are these really going to sell for more than like a few $100s? Like, can these really get into the $1,000 plus range? Because I thought, if these can sell for more than $1,000 or average out to more than $1,000, I've got a really nice 10x ROI machine here. And so yeah, since then, I went through some of my sales. Jonas.io for $2,000, Jigsaw.io for $3,000, Arthur.io for $1,475, Husky.io for $1,475, Godo.io for $620, Crypto.io for $1,640, Pallet.io for $2,695, Patents.io for $775, and more there. But there's been a lot of .io sales, and as you see, the highest one, I think Jigsaw is the highest sale I've had in .io, which is $3,000. So most of the stuff, that sweet spot there seems to be right around $1,500. But with the occasional something between like $2,000 to $3,000.
So then, what's the cost of a .io?
Yeah, $35 a year is what I pay for renewals for .ios, and I have about 50 .io names.
Gotcha. So it's one of those. It's not to say that you couldn't go out and invest in .ios as you would.
Yeah, it should be expensive. Yeah,
that's
why I keep it around 50.
With the pricing.
Exactly.
Should hopefully keep things in check.
Yeah. That's the other challenge with like .ai is like it has such a high renewal fee.
Right.
You really have to have some sales happen if you want to be spending thousands of dollars a year renewing.
Right.
Because it's a lot more.
Either that, or I think even in my section, I was talking about how cash can make or break a domain investing or even a development strategy. And in terms of renewals, it's like a lot of domain investors are out there and they're like, oh, it's just $8, $9, $10, whatever.
Adds up.
But it adds up.
Yeah.
But the thought process never goes, it's always been, I'll just do it for a year because I have time.
Yeah.
Now, I'm being generous in saying, and I think Paul Nix, he said this in one of his presentations, maybe it was a year, 2 years ago, the average time for a domain is something like over 400 days. I'm like, well, that's being really generous because there are names that are sitting out there. I mean, I have names, probably both have names in my portfolio that have been there
for
at least
years.
5 years.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so you start thinking about a newer investor.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, you really need to think about multi-year.
Yeah.
Which should force you to really look at that domain and go,
yeah,
do I want to actually ante up and do this thing for, 3 years, 5 years?
Yeah, people don't calculate their actual cost. I really consider it to be like the gambler's fallacy, right? It's like your friend that like loves playing poker, and just tells you like every couple of years, like I won $5,000, and you're like, yeah, but I know you've been playing poker every weekend. Like, how much are you in? I had a friend like that, and I'd asked him, he's like, oh, I'm probably down like $20,000.
Like,
and I'm like, yeah. And so that's the thing with domain investing. What I've always done, which I think is probably like the easiest way to make sure that you stay profitable, is I always try to, like in the beginning, like right now, like the domains that I'm selling, pretty much going to take all of the profit less taxes and put it into renewals.
Gotcha.
So I renew everything that I'm going to renew, and I know that's already paid for.
Right.
Even if I overpay for some that'll sell, right? Because maybe
Right.
it'll sell. I don't sell that many names in a year that I'm going to be overpaying by that much.
Right.
And so then you already have that covered. So I hope to have that covered usually in the first couple months of the year,
Right.
so that then I know for myself, great, everything, all costs are covered this year.
Right.
Now everything else is profit, and then I can start reinvesting that, because I like to take a certain segment of the profit and reinvestment into new names that go into the portfolio.
So then, are you doing that? One thing comes to mind, and it makes me think about: are you doing that like at the end of the year? So is that one of those things? Hey, Black Friday sales and all this other stuff, and you take advantage of renewal pricing or any other?
Yeah, well, the nice thing about the end of the year is that's usually where I will end up spending the most on acquisitions, right? Because then I know kind of exactly what I need to spend,
right?
Because I'm calculating my taxes and everything, and I'm going, okay, where should I end up here? Right. And so then, that's why it's also a great time to sell domains at the end of the year.
Right.
I always find like December also tends to be a good month for sales, because people have money left over, which is also a really great time. This is a trick I learned from someone. I'm not going to take credit for this. I learned this from someone years ago, but that said, whenever you want to just like get some last minute sales in, go through all of your inbound offers you had over the course of the year and ping them in December. Because for anyone that is trying to spend whatever is left in whatever marketing budget they had,
right.
The budget's going to run out. That's the time to get them.
Interesting. And they're likely, they may lose it.
Yeah.
In certain instances, if they don't use
it.
So
yeah.
Interesting. And so, I mean, in terms of that, I know we're running out of time. And so I guess, is there anything else that you'd like to share with the viewers and listeners?
Anything else I would like to share with the viewers and listeners? I think everybody should go to a domain conference like NamesCon. I think, there's a misconception around pricing of conferences where people think like, well, it's so expensive because of the flight and the hotel and all this. I'm like, what am I really going to get out of it?
Right.
I have never met anybody that has gone to a domain conference and afterwards said that it wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no way that I would have been able to do what I've done to date without having gone to domain conferences. And sometimes it's not something that you see right away. I think people want this like, well, okay, I want to have names in the auction, or I'm going to have a business card that has my names on it that I want to sell a certain amount of, and then like it's almost like the Vegas trip where people are like, and I paid for my Vegas trip with this. It's like, you can't think of it like that. It's
right.
like the different things that I've learned, all the different nuggets. I take notes every day. I do 3 things I learned each day.
Nice.
And so I look at that at the end of the conference, and then that usually, and especially because this is happening in January, so it's the beginning of the year.
Right.
While you may not sell domains or do something that makes up for the money that you spent going to the conference, boy, if you're playing your cards right, by the end of the year, it should have more than paid for itself.
Totally.
And this community, it's like people like yourself,
right.
Like people are more open in this community than just about any other community out there. If you go to the real estate community, or if you go to the stock market investing community, everyone wants to sell you a video course or their books or seminars or all this stuff.
Right.
Domainers, this is like the one time we all get to talk about domains because no one else wants to talk to us about it. And no one understands it, right?
Exactly.
And so you'll find that people will share all kinds of stuff about how they built their business and what they're buying, what they're selling, and all of that stuff. Not all that information is in blogs or in books, and there's no opportunity to have that back and forth dialogue like you can in person. So it is so valuable to go to shows like this.
Definitely, and that's the one thing, because like I said, with the 3 tracks of if you're coming for session, that's good, but the reality is, I'm like, man, this is a relational community.
Yes, yeah.
Like, if you're really going to get somewhere in this community in this industry, it's all relationally based, as is with most things in life. And so it's like, if you're coming for session only, you're probably not going to be
miss
too
part
pleased.
of the value.
I mean, you'll get some nuggets here or there, but some of the best conversations are literally just striking up with someone that you may overhear say something to someone, or they pose a question in a session. And so, I mean, I look at this, and I've been investing since 2012, went all in 2017, started making my way to NamesCon, or made my way to NamesCon 2018. And here it is, 2020, and I'm kind of looking and going, well, shoot, I've come a long way just from being the one lone person to now all these many different relationships. And they make the difference.
And that only really happens at a conference.
Right.
Twitter is great, and I think has been a good springboard.
Correct.
But it's the connection of, you're going back and forth and joking around on Twitter, and now you meet and you sit down and you have a coffee and you really get to know
body
somebody.
Language, we've all seen the back and forth, shots fired, and it's like, well, I don't think he actually meant that.
No,
but
you'll see everyone's a lot friendlier in person than they are when they're behind their computers. It's like with road rage, with driving, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, how can everybody get in contact with
you? You can read my blog, morganlinton.com, or you can contact me at morganlinton.com. Follow me on Twitter at morganlinton. My domain-specific Twitter account is at morgan.dotlinton.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, Morgan, man, thanks for sitting down.
Alan, thank you so much for having me. Honored to be on here.
Share this insight. And so thank you, viewers and listeners, for tuning in to Kickstart Commerce, where we share search marketing and domain name investing strategies to help grow your business. So please subscribe to this podcast via iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Podbean, or however else you choose to listen. Also, go to kickstartcommerce.com and look in the right-hand corner there on the sidebar and sign up for the daily newsletter. And then last but not least, definitely, if you can, NamesCon 2021, be there or be square. So thanks, and that's all for now.